This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead for this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio, and on this snowy Sunday morning in upstate New York, via phone, Steve Bick. And I guess it's tough to dig out up there in Greenwich.
We got significant snow, and it's still snowing. I was at the mercy today of our plow guy. If he was going to get here at a reasonable hour, I might have been able to get out, but no such luck. It's the real thing.
Yeah, it was probably about a foot at my house, and luckily, because usually in November I'll go out and one day I'll be out raking leaves and I'll go in and start up the snowblower and just get it going for the season, and I did not do that this year. So there was a tense few minutes as it went ring, 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 and it did not sound good for a while, and then finally a backfire with flames shooting out of it and started up because I was not going to be able to shovel the whole driveway with a foot on it in time for me to get out. But the snowblower did kick over, and then I just have to get to the top of my street, and I'm at the main drag, and that gets me to the thruway. But it was about 40 miles an hour down the thruway. So we definitely got banged with a winter storm here, even though it's not winter yet. So, yeah, a little bit dicey out there. And for folks who weren't tuned into the Handicappers Report earlier, Aqueduct has closed for this afternoon, weather-related, obviously. But we're in. We're going. I'm in the studio. Steve Bick via phone, so we're on the way. And Steve, just kind of looking back some of the news from the past week, I think one of the major stories of the past week, obviously the University of Arizona, the Racetrack Industry Program, they sponsor that global symposium on racing and gaming every year. Kicked right off with a keynote speech by Christopher Kay from NYRA, tossed in a couple of interesting notes for NYRA and the future of NYRA, most interesting of which is they're looking at exchange wagering perhaps. And when I was on your radio show with you, I said, you know what, I'm not a big fan of exchange wagering because I think anytime you're betting and folks have the chance to make money on horses that lose, I think the potential is there for some bad things to happen. But exchange wagering has become popular over in Europe. Betfair has moved over into the United States, and exchange wagering is being looked at in a few different jurisdictions, California being one of them. So given that, I think if you're one of the bigger racing venues in the United States, I'll tip my cap that they're at least exploring the possibility. Again, I'm not a big fan of exchange wagering. I think one of the things that fans like is they can lock in odds. I think if the racing industry explored that, and there was the Stan Bergstein column from years ago, who had a formula for locking in odds in a pari-mutuel setting. I think that would be a better answer. But again, I tip my hat to Chris Kay and NYRA for at least exploring the possibility.
Well, part of that, of course, is tied into Global Betting Exchange, which is the service agency that is going to be handling the account wagering platform. This has been actually delayed, of course, because the state crazy interference when it came to the bidding process. There didn't need to be a bidding process because Global Betting Exchange was the only vendor that was really capable of providing the service that NYRA was interested in. And so with Global Betting Exchange getting the green light, they're well-positioned to take advantage of some marketplace opportunities. And you say exchange wagering. For me, it's a bit of a non-starter, but I recognize the potential, the arbitrage concept, that the idea that this is something, the fast-moving nature of it, the in-race running opportunities, and these are things that may appeal to a younger demographic, and not just to a younger demographic. When there was the opportunity for people in North America before it was regulated, the American audiences were involved with the Betfair situation and were taking advantage of it and loved it. So there's clearly an audience for it. If it can build handle, that's great. The big issue has always been not just what you brought up, which is all legitimate, about how do you police the potential for conduct unbecoming. The bigger issue is a device and a system that equitably rewards the industry and siphons off enough money to justify the development of it and the regulation and having it as a means of wagering on American racing. That's the real problem. The rest of it, I think, could probably purchase and find a mechanism that polices it properly. But the bigger issue is it doesn't have a model that returns enough back to the game. And that's the big rub here. So we'll see where this goes, but you're absolutely right. The fact that NYRA is aware and wants to be positioned, should exchange wagering catch fire and move through the industry, it's great that they would be in position. One of the things, of course, of Kay's presentation, it seems that everybody now wants to just use the reference of the guest experience and the enhanced experience at the racetrack. They're using that as a piñata, and people just teeing off nonstop. I don't know what is going to stop that, Steph, until people get a chance to see whatever enhancements are going to take place at the racetrack, Belmont and Saratoga in particular. But as usual, as we talk so often, NYRA tries to do anything or say anything, and the cat calls and bric-a-brac start flying.
And again, the transcript of Kay's keynote address are available online. I'm pretty sure they're still linked on Equidaily, in fact, so if folks want to go and read the actual keynote address, they can pull that up. Also at the symposium, Matt Haggerty had a column towards the end of the symposium. Federal drug oversight has weak support. He quotes Jay Hickey, the president of the American Horse Council, as saying racing does not want to go down that line to get the federal government involved in racing. Obviously, with that hearing that was held in Washington, a couple of months ago, there are certain folks out there who are for federal oversight. I think once you get into the industry, it becomes a little more dicey, because I think a lot of people can see that is a bad way to go down. That's a watch out what you wish for kind of situation. But Steve, I just wanted to bring up, they talked about this quite a bit. Some of the pro-oversight panelists at that hearing down in Washington quoted that study that was done and presented at the Jockey Club meeting up in Saratoga this year, where they said they'd gone out and talked to some bettors, and some actually the big bettors in the country. 69%, according to the statistics, very concerned about drugs in racing. 66% concerned about integrity issues and corruption. 63 in takeout rates. 62 in no leadership in the industry. But again, at that panel in Washington, those numbers, the bettors concerned 69% about drugs, 66% about integrity. But I just wanted to bring up, then you go down that study. This wasn't brought up in Washington. Only 19% are concerned about lack of government oversight. So not too many people that they polled, they had concerns, but they weren't saying the federal government should get involved. But that wasn't brought up by folks.
That whole study that was being referenced, that whole thing was a loaded and farcical and front-loaded survey. The whole thing was leading. The whole methodology was laughable. The questions, the way the thing was positioned, it was basically a self-fulfilling prophecy. That thing has been scoffed at and virtually just laughed at. The whole intention of it was basically to produce those kinds of numbers and those kinds of statistics that could then be flaunted around. I'd like to just simply reference the most simple, in practice study there is. All we heard leading up to the eradication of steroids, we heard for the period of time it took, the 18 months, to pass the model rules and to drive steroids from the game. We kept hearing, if we can get rid of steroids, the bettors will come flocking back. They're so concerned with steroids. Steroids are gone. Where are the bettors? Where are those supposed bettors flocking back? This is such a canard and such a phony, agenda-driven, nonsensical route to travel. If you want to have a serious talk, and I got nothing, I have no argument with stronger rules, stronger penalties. I believe in the testing system and the evolution that the testing program, we're testing more than they test in Europe or anywhere else in the world. I'm behind all of that, and I'm behind penalties, when guys are caught. But don't go down this phony path where you're attempting to rile people up with phony demagoguery. To me, it is such a distraction from the real issues, and the biggest issue is the handle topic in terms of things like takeout and optimal pricing. Those are the things we should be worried about. Servicing the existing community of serious horse players, and creating an environment that draws more people in and shows them what a terrific wagering, gambling enterprise racing is. That should be the absolute hallmark agenda.
And along those lines, some of the symposium panels were talking about some of those topics. And did anything else strike your fancy? They talked about tournaments, using those to bring new fans in. There was also some talk about the Pat Cummings panel talked about statistics and how those could be used in new and different ways. Anything else from Arizona that caught your attention?
I don't think so. I think I had Matt on as well, and I'm just looking through my stack of notes. The tournament play, I suppose, is really one of the real positives that continues to draw a certain segment, and I thought the conversation through the young player, that Matt Bernier, that was an interesting case study. The kid in his teens and or early 20s. Wanders into one of the racing networks and is like intrigued. What is this? And what's going on with these odds? And you can bet on this. And the next thing you know, the kid becomes a horse player, and within months he qualifies for last year's NHC. And that's a story that probably deserves more attention and is very encouraging. That a 20-year-old college student watches a racing network and suddenly becomes a horse player. That, to me, that's as significant as anything that was brought up at the symposium.
Yeah, and again, if folks you type into Google University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program, you can go to their website. And I'm not sure whether they're all up yet. Sometimes it'll take a couple of days before, but transcripts and the presentations will be up there so folks can read. But there was a lot of great coverage, as you say. Hagerty and the Racing Forum, the Blood Horse, had some good coverage as well. But there was, 3 days out there of panels and whatnot. Kind of interesting. I always say, though, and I've participated on some of these panels, you sit there and you think, great ideas, the right people are in the audience. But I don't know what really ever comes out of these. Just throwing the ideas out there, I guess there's a benefit to that. But you don't necessarily see any immediate action, that's for sure.
Well, that isn't necessarily, and I talked about this early in last week, that isn't really as central to the whole concept as the opportunity for the students at the University of Arizona in the RTIP. The Racetrack Industry Program participants, they plan and they execute this entire symposium. And the discussions that are generated, they frequently are topical and important, and there are things that can come out of it. But the most important opportunity here is the mentoring and the relationship building that goes on for the students in the program. They get a unique opportunity to meet with and intermingle and have a luncheon. That's one of the highlights of the entire symposium is the mentor lunch, where for a few hours the students sit with various members of the industry. These are kids that have chosen to try to take a life avenue into the game. And for that reason alone, whatever is discussed at the symposium is really secondary. The reason it is worth encouraging and the reason it needs to be supported is because it is a hotbed for the kids that are going to be industry leaders down the road. And graduates from the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program end up in all walks of life in the game. You think about trainers, Todd Pletcher, Bob Baffert, Chuck Simon. You think about racetrack executives, Rick Hammerly, Martin Kanza. You go around to the promotional departments and all the various other avenues. Guys like Eric Zimney and Dan Silver. My friend Lori Fry, she's in equine insurance in Ocala. These kids want to be in the game. And for that reason alone, this is a very important and highly significant enterprise. They do all the work themselves and deserve to be applauded for it.
Yeah, and you make a great point, and I'm always amazed when there is a list of the folks that came out of that program. If folks aren't familiar with it, again, University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program. It's been around for a while now, and a lot of the folks in the industry, names you may be familiar with, are graduates of that program. And as I say, whenever I see a list, I'm always amazed. And I heard Matt Haggerty on your show this past week, and I think he said it's something like they have a 90% placement rate coming. It was an incredible number.
Sure, right immediately. The kids get jobs immediately. This is a hotbed, and also the program at the University of Louisville too. That also puts kids into the game as well. If you went around the industry, there is no element of it where RTIP grads are not involved. I mean, horse-based advertising agencies. You go through virtually anything. The farms, the management of stallions, racing office, communication departments. Everywhere you look, there's kids from the RTIP, and it's Don Reed and staff. Of course, they've been supporters of our show and of my show on radio. They deserve nothing but our widespread respect and appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll head to our first break. When we come back, take a look at some of the racing from yesterday. Hollywood Futurity certainly in the mix. Coming up a little later on, Jack Van Berg will join us. Also, Mike Welch of the Daily Racing Forum. So stay tuned. Loose on the Lead continues.
This is Steve Beck. Join me Tuesday through Saturday here on OTB TV for At the Races, my Sirius XM daily news magazine of the thoroughbred industry. Handicapping, interviews, analysis, everything you could want. 6 a.m. OTB TV.
Go Zepper kicking clear, and Go Zepper is pulling away impressively.
Hysterical Lady Ginger Punch to win it.
And it's Wilco in front, and he's going to pull off a huge upset here.
But it's Round Pond going on to take the distaff.
Awesome again. Sire of 10 Great Whitewater's, 4 Breeders' Cup champions, and 4 multimillionaires standing at Adena Springs.
It's more than just a sports bar. It's Stadium Cafe. Located at 389 Broadway in Saratoga, it's the place to be for great times and great food. Their menu features everything from gourmet entrees to your favorite wraps and sandwiches. Or maybe you just want to grab a beer and catch the game. So what can be better than that? How about 2 Stadium Cafes? There's also the Westside Stadium, right up the road at 112 Congress Street. Same great menu, same great service. Whether you're hanging at the bar or just relaxing outside on their spacious covered patio, you'll always leave knowing you'll be back again.
We love, above all, the staff. We love Dave Harmon, and the food is fantastic.
Not one, but two. 112 Congress Street, 389 Broadway. Guaranteed to be a home run.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTV.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTV.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead for this Sunday morning. Seth Merrill from Equidaily in the studio. Steve Vick from Sirius and XM's at the races via phone. And Steve, before we get to some of the racing action, some other news over the past week and a half or so, a little bit of an impasse between the Virginia Horsemen's Association and the folks at Colonial Downs, which could lead to 12 days of racing at Colonial. That's what the Horsemen are a little bit upset about. Going back fairly recently, there was as many as 40 days of racing at Colonial. This past year, 25 days, but in 2014, Colonial wants to run only 12 days. So as I say, a little bit of an impasse with the Horsemen, who understandably want more racing.
Well, and not just want more racing just for the sake of more racing. This is a big issue, and it's kind of a microcosm of the complaints that people have had that have been directed toward Churchill, and some of the state requests that have been, kind of working their way into KHRC meetings. The idea that Churchill would be happy to run Stephen Foster Day and Derby Oaks and cut a lot of the rest of it out. This is sort of a smaller regional discussion, and there's two things at work here, Seth. Number one is a thing that I've kind of talked about and hinted at. In fact, I brought it up this week. I'm glad you brought this up, because to me, we've just spent the 2 years with the idiotic LASIX conversation, where a bunch of people who have never had their hands on a horse are trying to tell horsemen and owners how they should manage their stock. And one of the outgrowths of that LASIX conversation is the just incredible contempt that has emanated out of that discussion toward the horsemen, and the constant badgering and the constant presentation of the concept that our horsemen are a bunch of drug-addled and drug-reliant nitwits. What it's done is it's seemingly injured the reputation of the HBPAs in general and horsemen as a group. And it's an incredible disservice, because then when you have a discussion like we're having here about dates, anything the horsemen say, that same group of people that have tried to injure and basically denigrate the opinion of horsemen, it's basically inching its way into discussions like this as well. And so, to me, there's a bigger problem here that you've had a sort of a neutering of the opinion of the horsemen, and not to take away from the bettors, who are at least a third of the equation, but there's no game without horsemen, and there's no game without the racetracks and with the owners. And so, to just blatantly have a negative automatic response to anything that the HBPAs and the horsemen are fighting for, it is just incredible in this day and age. It's sad, and to me, it's a big outgrowth of the debate that was involved with LASIX. There's just this contempt of the horsemen, and they're the ones who know best. And 12 days of racing during a period when Maryland isn't running, that's not enough. What are people going to go down and you're going to pick up your entire shed and you're going to move it down to Virginia for 12 days of racing? It's not practical. And it's just preposterous. And I understand the Jacobs family, they're doing the best they can at Colonial against a difficult economic climate and a backdrop, without any support from gaming money. But this doesn't work. And the Virginia Racing Commission, they came up with a a split the baby concept, I guess, is going to be enough. Maybe it'll be the same as what you had this year. But to me, this was a bit of a brush fire that nobody was paying attention to.
Yeah, and this is one where I think the horsemen certainly have the fans on their side, actually, because I think Colonial is unique enough that I think racing fans like to bet the Colonial product. So to see it cut in half, I think fans are a little dismayed to hear that as well. So I think in this particular instance, the horsemen maybe have the fans on their side a little bit. All right, let's shift over and watch some of the racing from the weekend. Got a couple from Hollywood Park. First up, we will take a look at the Hollywood Futurity. And going into it last week, there were a couple of articles. Does Shared Belief throw his hat in the ring for an Eclipse with a win in the Hollywood Futurity? I think that talk will ramp up after we see what happened. We're going to watch the number 6 Shared Belief win pretty easily as the even money favorite. And Steve, I said it earlier on the show, I had Jeremy Plonk on with me on Wednesday, who's putting together his countdown to the Crown magazine that'll be out start of the year. So he's kind of sussed out some interesting 2-year-olds, and he mentioned before the entries had even come out for this race, he said keep our eyes on Candy Boy for John Sadler. So a nice call there is Candy Boy, the number 4 horse, will run second in here at 26-1. So pretty nice performance by that horse also. But Shared Belief now 3 for 3. 3 for 3, very convincing. He is going to be very interesting watching into the 3-year-old season. I will also add disappointment in here was Tapit Rich, who winds up 11 in the field of 12. So you would think they're going to have to group and maybe go to a little bit easier company. But Shared Belief, again, very, very impressive.
It's not easier company that Tapit Rich needs. The Tapit Rich needs some deportment lessons. They've got real behavioral issues with him, and it's too bad because it killed me yesterday. And all the reports were that the new headgear they were working with for him had really made a big difference. He'd been working much more manageably and had shown a much more professional response in the morning. But of course, when you get them out there in the afternoon and their blood gets up, he reverted immediately to his rank and throwing his head around and just was. The gates opened, you saw him plunge to the back, and you saw Mike Smith just fighting nonstop with him. The race was over. Meanwhile, much more importantly, what was going on up front is this gelding, and there's a story in that, of course, because the Wygots, who have had a lot of great horses over the years, they like the Campaign Colts. This horse was gelded early and was available for sale. The purchase by Jim Rome and the partners that are around the Hollendorfer barn. It's an amazing story, and it has great potential, Seth. This is a horse that really the industry will immediately rally behind. A 106 buyer winning this, I think he absolutely puts himself squarely at or near the top in the juvenile Eclipse conversation. I don't see why he wouldn't. And you then can extrapolate that with Hollendorfer moving forward, the horse is moving over to Santa Anita with Hollywood's closure. They'll be situated there. Jim Rome's potential to talk this on his radio show to a non-racing audience all January, February, March, April, and into Classic season. If this horse stays sound, he is going to be an absolute poster child. And you can already envision what will happen here. Between Jim Rome on television and on radio, this is really the right horse to be rooting for, and for obvious reasons. He was so professional yesterday. He was stretching out to the 2 turns, sat so comfortably for Corey Nakatani, and when Candy Boy made that early move to reach contention, a lot of times when a horse is stalking, suddenly a horse comes on your outside. Now you're looking both in and out, and the horse might sometimes want to run off. The horse absolutely waited for Nakatani to give him the cue, and when he did, forget it. He ran away from this field, and Candy Boy, Tamarando, the rest of them, Bondholder. I'm sorry, there's nothing to worry about behind him. This horse buried this field and couldn't have been more impressive. And as I said, a 106 buyer makes him the top juvenile immediately.
Yeah, as you say, going to be fun to watch going forward, not only because of the talent, but because of the connections as well. All right, let's take a quick look at earlier on the card, Hollywood Turf Cup. I bring this up just because I love these turf marathons, and California seems to specialize in them. Of course, this will be the last time we'll see the Hollywood Turf Cup itself, but we're going to watch the stretch run, and it's always fun. I love these turf marathons, as I say, particularly when they come down the stretch and you get a ding-dong battle like this. Early in the race, Segway had taken the lead under Mike Smith. Tamarane comes up and takes the lead late, but then Lucayan on the outside, the number 6 horse, is going to run by both of these horses. Really, really a fun performance in the Hollywood Turf Cup.
Well, you mentioned this race, a race won by John Henry and so many other greats. Of course, we've been having these Hollywood memory conversations on the radio. Jack Van Berg will offer some memories when he joins us after this segment. This was a nice performance, and with every passing race, Seth, it's so hard to watch this. We've got today, and then next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 4 race cars left in the history of one of the great racetracks in America. And this win, absolutely, always happy when Neil Drysdale wins, goes out nicely. In fact, he had 2 wins on the card. And then also, we're not going to watch it, but in the Native Diver, Hollendorfer runs 1, 2, 3 with Blue Skies and Rainbows, and then Hear the Ghost and Rousing Sermon. So a big day at Hollywood for the Hollendorfer barn and for both Hall of Famers, Neil Drysdale and Jerry Hollendorfer.
Yeah, and I will mention that I've been showing some Hollywood stuff on Racing Across America as well. The other day I showed Affirmed, who won the Hollywood Gold Cup very impressively. That was a great race. But then the day before I picked up, and I just searching for Hollywood videos, I'd completely forgotten. They were a harness track, and so I showed Niatros getting a world record out there, which is kind of a quirky Hollywood memory. Just also want to touch on Sunbeam, Louisiana Champions Day, one down at Fairgrounds yesterday, and I want to remind people that today out at Remington is the Springboard Mile, and I bring that up. It's a nice field of 12, very competitive, should be a fun race, but coming out of the Springboard Mile last year, Will Take Charge. So,
yeah, he was second last year behind Texas Bling, and that I was surprised when the rankings came out from Toba, which we talked about last week with Rick Hammerly. I was surprised the Springboard Mile didn't get a grade 3 set.
Yeah, and maybe this year will move them forward a little bit. I think it's a competitive field that some of these horses can come out of and be heard from next year, and so maybe popping a couple of years together will move them forward. But certainly after last year, and again, Will Take Charge doing so well. It's a race to keep your eyes on this afternoon. All right, we'll take our next break. As noted, when we come back, Jack Van Berg. Stay tuned. I'm Seth Merrill. Join me weekdays at 10 for Racing Across America. We'll look at important races from around the country, get insight from top handicappers and analysts, and preview the upcoming week in racing. That's Racing Across America, weekdays at 10, right here on the OTB TV network.
I didn't want to get just any degree after high school.
Horse racing has always been my passion.
I was already a lawyer.
When I was young, my dad took me to the races. The sound of the crowd. I still remember.
I'm 40, and I don't want to stay in a career I don't love.
I want to follow my passion.
Follow your passion at the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program.
Wagering at CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night school in the buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report.
We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Seth Merrill and Steve Bick in here, and we're making contact with Jack Van Berg. We had him momentarily and lost him, so we'll get him back, though. But, Steve, talk about one of the legends in the game. How about Jack Van Berg?
Well, you know, we've always done that Christmas gift concept for books, and I bring out the books of the year. There's only one book that anybody should be looking to buy for Christmas, and it's Jack from Grit to Glory, and it's just wonderful. I mean, anybody who grew up in the era that encompasses really the last 4 decades will absolutely love this. It is an incredibly personal memoir that Jack and Chris Katulak put together, and I've had maybe 3 conversations this year with Van Berg. Most recently, we're using Hollywood closing as a backdrop. And Jack is so engaging and has been not just a Hall of Famer in terms of the horses he put on the racetrack and the moments that remain indelibly etched in racing history, but he's had a huge influence on the game as a mentor. I mean, the people whose careers he launched, including Frank Brothers and Bill Mott and Wayne Catalano, I mean, it's unbelievable. He's as important a figure as we've got in the game.
And we have him now. Jack Van Berg has joined us. Again, Seth Merrill in the studio, Steve Bick via phone, and now Jack Van Berg via phone, as noted before, one of the legends in the game. Jack, good morning.
Morning, Steve. How you doing?
Happy to have you on board. And Jack, we were just talking about the book, Jack from Grit to Glory, the true story of Jack Van Berg, an American horse racing legend. And Jack, I know you've been bouncing around the country, autograph signings and whatnot for the past few months. Give us a little bit of what the response has been and how fun it's been to go around the country with this book.
Well, it's been, I think the greatest thing is Chris did such a tremendous job of research and everything, and come back with statistics and stuff that I forgot about or didn't even know, and about my father and everything. And the beauty part of going around the country and signing is the people that come up to me and thank me that they were young people in their teens when they went to work for me, and I altered their life and guided them in the right direction and give them a work ethic the same as my father gave me. I thank the Lord every day that the ethics that my father gave me for working and honesty and stuff like that. And that's what I did for these people that worked for me. And that, I think that's the greatest thing that I've had happen, Steve, is the people come up and thank me. And I mean, from one end of this country to the other. I was in Charlestown, I had people. I was at Delaware Park, Maryland, Nebraska, Chicago, just one after the other. The people that had worked for me at one time.
Yeah,
it
sounds like it's been a great tour, the book signing tour, and I'm just wondering, besides autographing the book, you get people walking up with racetrack programs, do you get to sign an Ali Sheba program every once in a while?
Oh, yeah, they've come up with pictures of Ali Sheba, they've come up with the programs of it, and some people have come up just with their race day program and wanted me to sign. I've signed for people that just come up with their race day program, and I've signed for them. But it's really been good. I've probably the most enjoyment I've had in the last few years is signing the book, and the beauty part of it is the people that have called back. That I had a guy that grew up in Omaha. His dad had the feed business for a while, and he was just a kid, but he bought the book of San Antone from me and read it, and he just called me the other day, and he said, Jack, you can't believe the memories that thing brought back. He said, I think it's the greatest thing I've ever read.
Yeah, and again, for folks who haven't seen the book yet, it's Jack from Grit to Glory. Steve, you have something?
Well, of course, and you can go to jackfromgrittoglory.com to order the book. The easiest way, I mean, it is in lots of racetrack bookstores and so forth, but just go right to the website. And Jack, one of the backdrops, of course, right now is that a week from today, Hollywood Park will close. And a big part of your career comes through Hollywood. You're as unhappy about this turn of events as anyone. Talk a little bit about Hollywood Park, what it's meant to you and your career, and, of course, the moments that you probably would have liked to have seen them go the other way. But Hollywood Park to Jack Van Berg.
Well, I think it's the most devastating thing. I mean, it just turns my stomach every day to think that institution like this, that they're closing down when they could have the greatest sports complex anywhere in Los Angeles area right here. If they'd put a football team in here and the racing and the new forum with the Madison Square Garden, it just makes you sick. And this has been such a part of my life. I've been here for 41 years, had horses out here for 41 years, and I've got beaten in the Breeders' Cup by Alysheba, with Alysheba nose in the big race in the Classic, the gate dancing by nose. And it's just, I've had some great memories out here, and I've rubbed elbows with some great people, great horsemen, Charlie Whittingham, Willard Proctor, and them kind of people, trained horses out here, Bob Wheeler. Good, just down-to-earth top horsemen, and all the movie stars come to the races here at Hollywood Park. There's memories that you can never take away.
Talk a little bit more about that first Breeders' Cup, because, of course, John Gaines and John Nehrude and everybody that had put together the Breeders' Cup, it was a bit of a mystery as to how it would be received, how it would come off. And Marge Everett, of course, the central figure in making it a smashing success from day one, but not a day without controversy, nor the morning after. Talk about Gate Dancer and the Classic.
Well, it was something that it was a great idea. It's turned into a great thing. It's been like the Super Bowl, the World Series, and all that, only better because you got the best jockeys, the best horses, the best trainers bringing horses to the races. But that first day on Gate Dancer, I thought myself and all the reporters thought it was the worst call that the stewards had ever made. I was like a bank robber. Goes and robs a couple, 3 banks, serves his time, and comes out and gets on us, walks by a bank, and somebody else robs it, he gets accused. That's what Gate Dancer was. He got disqualified in the Kentucky Derby from 4th place, moved back to 5th. And that day they were, Wild Again was trying to get out. Cadero was on Slew of Gold trying to push Pat Day back in there. And they hit my horse from the rear and knocked him in. And then I got blamed for it. But, boy, even in my book, if you look at the head-on, I'm out away from them, and they're still pushing on each other, So it was a bad call, but it was a big thing. If I had it to do over again, I would have filed an objection. But I didn't want to stir up no dust with a big day like that, just starting out.
Well, and then, of course, you mentioned Alysheba, and when we talked recently, you brought out the very germane fact that the first 4 Breeders' Cups, you were necks and noses from winning 3 of the first 4 Classics.
I always tell everybody I was 3 noses from getting out of debt. So it was, but then in the '88 when Alysheba won the Breeders' Cup in Churchill Downs in the dark, that was a very gratifying thing.
And Jack, let me, as we wind up here, we're getting close to the end, but we talked about Hollywood closing, and you've been a mainstay out in Southern California for years and years, and so Hollywood, in the lifetime of a lot of viewers, for us this morning, is probably the biggest track they've seen close, but you were closely tied into a track that closed years and years ago, Ak-Sar-Ben. For folks who haven't been around for a while, give us a little feeling what Ak-Sar-Ben was like. That was a real mainstay on the racing calendar, wasn't it?
Well, if you want to find anything like Ak-Sar-Ben, you'd have to go to Oaklawn Park in Hot Springs, Arkansas. That's the old-fashioned way where the people come and have fun. They don't charge an arm and a leg for the concessions. And Ak-Sar-Ben was such a beautiful place, and the people just enjoyed the races, enjoyed everything there. And now when you go to Omaha, there's not a soul in Omaha that's just not sick because they closed the place down. But I went to the governor twice, tried to get him to get the slot machines there, and they said, no, Iowa got them, and they're blooming now, and the people in Omaha have to suffer for it. In the state of Nebraska also. Ak-Sar-Ben was a non-profit organization. They give all the fire trucks and rescue units around throughout the state to little towns. It was a great, great thing. It's just a crying shame.
Yeah, it's in a similar situation. If they gotten the slots out at Hollywood, that would probably still be up and going too. It's kind of a shame that's the situation in horse racing these days.
Well, it is, and they've shot themselves in the foot. For all years, they were the only game in town. Now, when they got the competition, they didn't go forward. NASCAR and the PBR, with what they do in the advertising, how they run their business, has just blossomed. And every PBR event you look at in NASCAR, the stands are full of people, you know? And you just got to treat your fans with respect and let them have a good time.
Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed that the horse racing game can kind of get back on a stronger footing. Jack, we certainly appreciate the visit this morning. We got to wrap things up, but again, we'll remind people: Jack from Grit to Glory, the true story of Jack Van Berg, an American horse racing legend. Great book, great gift for the Christmas season. And again, if you go to the website, you can find out all about it. Jack, again, thanks for the visit this morning.
Seth and Steve, thank you very much for having me. And anytime, just give me a buzz, okay?
Thanks a lot. Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
Jack Van Berg, again, one of the all-time greats. All right, we'll take our next break. When we come back, Mike Welch, the Daily Racing Forum correspondent from Florida. We'll talk a little Florida racing with Mike right after this.
It's more than just a sports bar. It's Stadium Cafe. Located at 389 Broadway in Saratoga, it's the place to be for great times and great food. Their menu features everything from gourmet entrees to your favorite wraps and sandwiches. Or maybe you just want to grab a beer and catch the game. So what can be better than that? How about two Stadium Cafes? There's also the Westside Stadium, right up the road at 112 Congress Street. Same great menu, same great service. Whether you're hanging at the bar or just relaxing outside on their spacious covered patio, you'll always leave knowing you'll be back again.
We love, above all, the staff. We love Dave Harmon, and the food is fantastic.
Not one, but two. 112 Congress Street, 389 Broadway. Guaranteed to be a home run.
Stately Victor, final furlong of the Toyota Bluegrass, runs right by Patio Prado. Alan Garcia and Stately Victor, a 40-1 upset.
Dinah Zappa holding on. Dinah Zappa wins.
Horse of the Year Ghost Sapper, sire of 9 new stakes horses and 5 new stakes winners, including Grade 1 winner Stately Victor in 2010, standing at Adena Springs.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Just a reminder one more time, if you're interested in that Jack Van Berg book, the website is jackfromgrittoglory.com. And I'm sure if you type in Jack Van Berg on Google book, it'll come up as well. But the website is jackfromgrittoglory.com. Happy to be joined now by Mike Welch, Daily Racing Forum correspondent from Florida. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, guys.
Happy to have you on board. And going to talk a little racing and maybe go back to Friday, that Zakov race. We'll talk a little bit about that. But before we do, Mike, I just wanted to ask you kind of an overarching question that has been really in the news for at least the past couple of weeks, but going back months. But what is the buzz down there now that the traditional Gulfstream meet has started and we're overlapping on weekends with Calder? And last week, the handle numbers, I mean, Gulfstream just trounced Calder. What's the buzz down there on the backstretch with these two going head-to-head now?
Well, I mean, most of the buzz is just about whether this is going to continue or end, and if there's going to be any deals made, and to discontinue this, kind of silly situation, especially from the Calder standpoint. And I talked to Tim Ritzel a couple of days ago. He says there's some offers on the table. He thinks they might be near to making some kind of a deal. I'm going to guess that by the end of this month, Calder might drop out of this situation, not run this winter, and I think some kind of compromise will be made where Calder will go to a limited schedule next year in exchange for whatever is offered to them, just to keep this situation from happening. What Calder needs to do is to make some kind of a deal that will still allow them to run their casino. That's their first and foremost thought there, is to operate the casino. So, like I said, there are some deals on that table in that, with that in mind, and hopefully, it's a bloodbath over there as far as, handle-wise and money-wise and money to purses. So, obviously, it'd be better for everybody all around if the conflict ends sooner rather than later.
And just the racing game, because last weekend you had the Claiming Crown over at Gulfstream, which of course is fun to follow, but they had 3 great stakes over at Calder that just got lost in the mix, so that can't be good for anybody.
No, it really is, and it's good for the riders that get to go over there and pick up the extra money. I mean, there are some riders that, wouldn't have much business over here, and they're making a good living over there now. At Calder, and same with some trainers who probably couldn't win races here and are getting the opportunity to pick up some money during the conflict. But no, you're right. I mean, it's been pretty much this way even through the summer, which is traditional Calder season. Gulfstream outhandled them pretty readily, and now the percentage of the handles is increasing greatly in Gulfstream's favor, even though Gulfstream business is off too compared to last year. And, part of that is the fact that they're in conflict with Calder, and part may have to do with the fact that, when Gulfstream opened last year, they were opening up their winter meet and not having been in business here for 6 months, and now that they've been in business, it takes a little bit of the bloom off the rose as far as the Gulfstream meet. It's not as much of a novelty anymore, and maybe people, are not as interested in playing it since they've been playing it right along. So I haven't really talked to Timmy as to try to investigate why they are off a little bit, but they are definitely off from last year, even though their handle numbers are pretty good.
Well, that certainly makes sense, though. You take some of the specialness away, certainly at the beginning of the meet when you're running all year like that. Steve?
Well, Mike, got to tie into that point you just made about the riders going back and forth. I'm going to bring up a name that is irresistible, and that's Matt Rispoli, who had the breakthrough win for Graham Motion last weekend at Calder. Then comes back on Sunday, goes 3 for 3 at Calder, and then boots home that big price winner at Gulfstream later in the afternoon for Marcus Vitale. And this kid is really turning some heads.
Yeah, I mean, people are taking notice. I think most of his success at Calder has come with Marcus Vitale, and the same over here. Marcus is on a pretty good streak right now. I don't know if you say Rispoli's along for the ride, or Matthews along for the ride, or he's in part responsible for that success. For whatever it is, they formed a pretty good team, and he definitely bears watching, and I'm sure his business will increase here. I think he's running close to 50% at Calder since he's been up here, which is remarkable. Percentage obviously not as great here, but he's looked good in his limited opportunities, and I expect him to get some more business here.
Let's talk about somebody that looked very good going back to Friday, and that was the return of Zykov, which a lot of people were watching. And gosh, Mike, it certainly feels like the sky's the limit, although we're very much used to these Fletcher horses having spectacular success down at Gulfstream. Give us your thoughts. We're going to watch the race here.
Yeah, he came back off a long layoff. There were some question marks whether he would come back in the same form that he showed us in his one start back in February. But, even though the winning margin was not nearly the same, he didn't dominate as he did his first start. This race was probably more impressive just because of the competition he faced, the fact that he'd been away so long. The Beyer number, proves that at 106 compared to the 99 he ran back in February. Look, that field in February has borne out to be pretty weak, and we see why he won, by as far as he did. But, he had one very talented rival in here and several other, old veteran hard-knocking horses, and, he still won fairly easily. Once he settled into the stretch, he put away the leader, drew off, ran 8 and change, and like you said, the sky could be the limit. It's hard to say. Distance-wise, he should go on. Even Grass is in the pedigree, obviously, being out of weight a while. So, there's no telling how good he can be and how far he will go. And I think Todd's next move will be to stretch him out to a mile. He's undecided yet as to where and when. The House Hope is probably on the radar. It's only 4 weeks. It's probably on the borderline of when Todd would like to bring him back. If it was 5 or 6 weeks, I think it would be a no-brainer, the House Hope. But I still wouldn't be surprised as long as he bounces out of this race well if we saw him in that race.
Most people were so taken by that race, they may not have been paying attention 25 minutes later, but second-time starter, an elusive bluff colt, 2-year-old for Fred Bry. We're so used to success for Bry with Stanley Gold. And this colt, for those that missed it, 85 buyer under Zayas. And this is a horse that should go on some watch lists. I don't know how far he wants to go, but I was impressed.
Yeah, he ran well. I'm not sure how strong that field was, but he got a good number, like you say. Interesting, too, Edgar Zayas, he lost his bug earlier this week, and it certainly didn't faze him. First day as a journeyman, he wins 3 races, 2 at Calder and 1 over here at Gulfstream, and same with Jonathan Gonzalez. He lost his bug this week, and he won a race here first day without the bug on Friday. But, Stanley, I respect him so much, and Fred Bry just keeps turning out runners, so we'll have to keep an eye on this horse as we go along. I have no idea. I have not talked to Stanley yet what might be next, but I'm guessing maybe the Gulfstream Park Derby on New Year's Day would be an option.
Got to also make a mention while we got the chance, Mike, for those that haven't tapped into it yet. Back at Saratoga, we, of course, alerted you to Mike Welsh and his partner, Mike Vesey, that works separately, is up at Palm Meadows here during the winter. Mike is at Gulfstream. The Clocker reports that are available at DRF.com, a fairly new, confirmed product after having some test runs. And this winter, there's still plenty of time to get on board. And I cannot tell people, I'm sure Mike is blushing, but for whether it's you subscribe for a weekend or subscribe for the entire season, DRF.com/Clocker, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday reports that may expand later in the winter. Mike, nobody should be playing Gulfstream without looking at your opinions and Mike Vesey's opinions of the workers in the morning.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I think it's if you're a serious player, even if you're a casual player, it only costs a few dollars a day. And I think it gives you a pretty good insight. I mean, the workouts in the winter here are pretty significant, I think. You got all the Pletcher first-timers coming out of Palm Meadows among a slew of new and talented faces out of there. And we have a lot more horses here this year that are very significant players. 1,300 horses on the grounds this year as opposed to only 1,000 or 950 last year. So we're going to have a lot more winners coming out of Gulfstream this winter than we've ever had in the past. So, I hope people look at it. I hope they like it, and I hope we can be of some help as the winter goes on.
And
Let's see if we. Yep, go ahead, Seth.
Mike, we got to wrap up, but before we do, I just wanted to go to one yesterday and get your thoughts. I haven't had a chance to watch the race yet, but I talked with Ron Nicoletti here on Friday about the 7th. At Gulfstream yesterday, which was a maiden special that I thought had the potential to have a couple interesting horses come out of that. And I mentioned a few in the race, and in passing, I also mentioned Michael Dilger is a trainer I think we have to keep our eyes on. He's an up-and-comer, very interesting, and he gets the job done with our Caravan, first-time starter there. As I said, I didn't get a chance to see the race yet, but what were your thoughts on our Caravan?
He surprised me too. I mean, they paid a lot of money for us. He had a right to run well. I mean, first time out, going 2 turns in what looked like a pretty competitive field. I mean, I could see why he was 35-1, but once he got in gear, leaving the backside, he made started to make a big run, and you could see pretty much from the quarter pole home that he was going to be the winner. High-speed chase who set the pace on the rail, hooked the whole way by My Stormtrooper. Though it was a little disappointing, didn't go on with it through the stretch. Nagaza was a bit of a disappointment. Thundergram didn't pick up his feet at all. So maybe he took advantage of a good opportunity here. Some horses that they expected to fire really didn't, but take nothing away from our Caravan. That was a very impressive performance, and the first of 2 consecutive big price winners for jockey Corey Lanerie, who came back in the next race for Wayne Catalano. with rope-a-dope. So Corey, who led the standings at Churchill, was off to a good start here.
Yeah, and as I say, I think Dilger's going to be a guy for us to keep our eyes on. Mike, we certainly appreciate the visit this morning. Thanks, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Okay, guys. See you later.
Thanks a
Stay
lot.
warm.
Steve, we got to wrap things up, top of the hour, but I do want to remind people there was supposed to be a Steve Bick bankroll here this afternoon with the snowstorm. Steve Snowden up in Greenwich. The Bick bankroll has been postponed. We'll announce when that will be rescheduled down the road. But again, the Bick bankroll postponed, not happening this afternoon. But Steve, thanks for coming in via phone this morning. Another good edition of Loose on the Lead. As mentioned earlier, Aqueduct is canceled for this afternoon, and don't forget, we'll wrap things up, but if you have questions, comments, or suggestions, looseonthelead@yahoo.com. We'd love to hear from you, questions, comments, or suggestions. Steve, we'll let you go. Get out there and shovel.
I've already, Tina already had me out there. I've already got the walk done, and, it's very, very tough. I would have, I wouldn't have been out there shoveling, but, you got to respond to the wife's demand.
That's right. Yeah, there's the yin and the yang to the whole situation. No question about it. All right, Steve, we'll see you in the studio next week.
You got it.
All right, that wraps things up for Loose on the Lead for this Sunday morning. Enjoy the racing this afternoon. I'll see you again in here tomorrow morning. Handicapper Support and Racing Across America. See you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.